My name is Johnny, and I'm here with the living legend, Kim Konte. Kim is founder of Non-Toxic Neighborhoods. It's a leading grassroots organization helping communities across the U.S. eliminate the use of harmful pesticides and herbicides, especially those containing glyphosate, in parks, schools, and public spaces. Thank you so much for your work, Kim. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm stoked about yeah, just reviewing all the great progress you guys are making here in the Carolinas. You guys got Hilton Head making some history there with the first kind of new integrated pest plan, doing organics instead of these poisons. So
Mhm.
congratulations.
It was amazing. And Hilton Head Island. Um, have you ever visited Hilton Head Island,
I
Johnny?
haven't had the pleasure, no.
Okay, so it's a magical place, and Charles Fraser, who was way ahead of his time, he played a big role in developing the island, and the trees that are protected on the island just kind of reflect his vision for creating a master plan community while not harming nature. So you just go on the island and you just automatically just feel the importance of that type of forward thinking planning. And when we started working with the town, I think a beautiful point was they just had a new town manager join who gets it. His wife gets it. They have two little kids. And he said, let me look into this, because normally when we meet with a municipality, we request a pesticide use report. It's never adversarial. We just want to see what the pest pressure is for that location, because based on region and where we are in the US, it's going to be different. So then when we go into the meeting, we share all of the proven and fiscally sound organic alternatives they can utilize if they're not being utilized already. And Mark Orlando went and did some research and found that this gorgeous island was not keeping pesticide records, was trusting their landscape contractors. And again, we don't blame the landscape contractors. It's how the system's built, right? And the pesticide industry is brilliant at doing business and always increasing use, but then their goal is always to increase use. So I think through the pesticide rewards programs, which we will get into, it really kind of has turned a lot of our parks and public spaces and playgrounds throughout the US and in over now 100 countries into pesticide dumping grounds. So our goal is to shift that paradigm through policy and legislation to get safeguards in place. It protects the applicators, it protects everybody utilizing these parks, and it just improves property, it increases property value. It's a win for everybody unless somehow you're benefiting from either the use or purchase of these chemicals.
Right. Glyphosate again is so toxic. There's like a crazy correlation, like a 0.997 R value with the increased use of glyphosate in autism, not to mention a couple dozen other conditions, all going parabolic at the same time. This stuff's coming down in our rain, and we're spraying it where our kids are playing. This is so crazy. So,
It's
I
in
live in a
mother's breast milk too. I mean, it's an ecocide and playing out very similar to how DDT did.
well, right, and it's water soluble, right? So there's no putting this back in the box. This is just something that's out there. It's just good luck.
And
It's it's madness.
it can have up to, and one thing we do is we are very conservative with what we share, because there is so much mounting research that we make sure that any research that we share on the dangers of glyphosate is peer reviewed. And I think what are the two nails in the coffin are the EPA's final biological report on glyphosate and the impacts on endangered species, where the EPA was sued. So then they had to release the report, and the report came to the conclusion that glyphosate kills or harms 93% of the total list of endangered species with both plants and animals. Okay, so that for me, I thought we're good. We did not have any of this back when we started this effort 10 years ago. Anybody can see this report and want to get in front of it. And then from a public health standpoint, just June 10th, just last month, they came out with a global comprehensive study on glyphosate that they took the EU's, which is 17 times lower than the EPA's safe level, low exposure level. And it's how we would be exposed to glyphosate in a park or at a school. And they said that even with the EU's 17 times less volume, that there are multiple cancers that are being caused at this dose exposure rate. So I think if you look at it from a public health standpoint, and if you look at it from an environmental standpoint, we just need this ecocide gone, just like DDT. But we also need to make sure that we don't play pesticide whack-a-mole. This isn't a product for product switch. It has to be a paradigm shift in how we treat our land and how it's all connected. We can't just allow companies that unfortunately have business models that benefit off increased chemical sales versus really kind of looking at increasing soil health, biodiversity, protecting public health. It works. And that's why the pesticide industry does not want us to get pilots online. So we were able to do organic pilot parks throughout the country. And we first wanted to focus in the South, because in the South, there's no dormant period. So the exposure is year round. So we focused on Texas, Florida, especially Florida with algae blooms. It's also connected. And then once we were getting policies and traction there, then we went to New York, and New York has the first statewide ban on glyphosate, which was amazing and unexpected. We really didn't think that was going to pass. And also all 5 boroughs now are organically maintained. So if you look at Central Park, there's not weed again. It is as stunning as ever now.
That is awesome. Yeah, it's just so sad when I see, a whole bunch of just brown weeds, and I know this is some weed killer of some sort that's just so toxic. You talked about playing, pesticide whack-a-mole. So what are some of the organic alternatives people can use for, managing the parks and the schools and doing this better?
Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so the greenwashing out there, I wish I could get you a visual from this company. The greenwashing in this space is really impacting policies that we're fighting for. And then you have city staff, county staff. You have folks that really want to get the tools that they can utilize that qualify as organic. But with the greenwashing and also with the distributors. So we had Burbank, California working on this, policy passed, everything is great. Then we had a chemical distributor in California share that they could utilize Cheetah Pro, and Cheetah Pro is organic. Cheetah Pro is not organic. It is glyphosate. Like, that is the epitome of pesticide whack-a-mole. And glyphosate has been banned in other countries because it's linked to seizures and children and dogs and pets. So with all of the misinformation and greenwashing, what we do, a simple way to vet any product, because also efficacy is like the second half of this conversation, but the simple way is they have to be OMRI listed. They have to be Washington State Department of Ag certified or approved for NOP production. So if you have any one of those, then you can trust that product. Sorry, Procter & Gamble, don't come after me, but they contacted us regarding their new pest control portfolio. So they have an electronic control for insects, which is organic and is great. But unfortunately, with their herbicide that they marketed as safe for pets and children, and they're really good at, again, marketing that just 9 simple ingredients. But the issue is 6 of the 9 are synthetic. So come on, like, P&G is big enough to really do the right thing. So we shared what our issues were, and we love to support them, but we do not take any funding from any of the products we recommend because we're constantly updating what everyone can utilize. So anytime there's new tech or new organic chemicals on the market, we send them to our very honest landscape contractors. We have 2 golf course superintendents, one in Florida and one in California, and they came from land grant universities, and they've been so great to work with. So they appreciate when we make product donations, and then they let us know if they're effective or not. So again, it's just always optimizing what tools can be used in place of these chemicals.
So what about for homeowners that would want to maybe control some weeds and use something similar to Roundup where they could just do a spot spray? Do you recommend like vinegar or alternatives like this?
Well, our grandmas used to use boiling water, which, I mean, obviously is dangerous if you're doing it wrong. But I think from a homeowner, unless you have a massive estate, hand pulling is beautiful. Boiling water, the vinegar Dawn salt recipe is very effective. But when we're working with the New York City Parks Department, we have a formula and the holy grail of organic control, which we'll share with you. And we'll share the recipe because back when we started this, and it started in Irvine, California, we didn't know what we were doing. We had no idea that the policy would pass the first city council meeting. We had no idea how any of this worked, right? So once the policy passed, we admittedly went organic by neglect. So the focus was to make sure that our parks department and the city had the tools they can utilize, because Irvine's policy didn't just deal with weed pressure organically. It dealt with any pest pressure. So insects, rodents, mosquitoes. And surprisingly, in California, we had to ship a lot of the organics from the East Coast. So we wanted to make sure that the costs were down and these products were effective. So we went through so much trial and error. The first mistake that we admittedly made out of the gate was they depleted every distributor in California at the time of an organic non-selective. So Roundup is a non-selective, which means it kills everything it comes in contact with. So this product called Avenger, while it smells amazing, it smells like it's beautiful citrus smell, it does nothing. We were joking like this might be actually manufactured by Monsanto. So like you try to go organic, it's so ineffective, you go right back to Roundup. So through all of that trial and error, we were able to really get the products that achieved the same control. Because again, from a fiscal standpoint, we want to make sure that if a municipality, if a city is using contractors or their own city applicators, that they don't have to increase their site visits. The goal is to always keep the costs the same while improving the turf conditions, and the benefits are undeniable. Like we take before and after photos and videos and drones. We provide the site coordinates, and we still get blamed for like photoshopping the turf looking as beautiful as it does. So that's why going to these sites and walking on the grass and seeing the benefits of the soil and all of the things that happen that the pesticide industry shares with you won't happen. They want to have these folks in a panic, that if you move to organic and regenerative practices, you're going to have weed again. And we've proven that that's not the case. So once we got the organic fields in Irvine thriving, then we had the surrounding cities in Orange County visit. And, it's nice to have city staff talk with city staff, ask questions, and they see the benefits. So it's everything that they're constantly told cannot happen. They're seeing the benefits of moving away from chemical dependent land care, landscaping.
It reminds me of the Monsanto Papers, right? How they fabricate the science, and it's just gaslighting and fraud.
All right, pull that.
And,
what did I say?
and it's just, right. These people are serial
So
criminals. We can't trust a word they say. So, yeah.
The Monsanto Papers, Carrie Gillum, little shout out for you. But she's been so amazing. And, I think, again, people are just, they're trusting. So they trust that what a school would use has been proven safe to do so. They trust that what's being sprayed on a baseball field is safe, but they're using known carcinogens for purely cosmetic reasons.
Right. That's just so crazy. Dandelions. This is like medicine growing out in the soccer field, and we're gonna kill that, and we're gonna put poison there where the kids are, getting the poison on their knees when they go and kick the ball. It's just the height of absurdity. So, yeah. And right, and then you talk about the wildlife. 93% of wildlife. So this
No,
stuff isn't
endangered species.
okay.
Endangered is even worse. It's like
Probably
the most
wildlife at large as well, right?
threatened. Yeah,
Yeah.
all of us, all living things. But one thing I want to share was the whole reason why I got into this space was we were living in Bermuda. It was amazing. And Bermuda is not a progressive country. And they went and banned the importing Roundup glyphosate-based products and utilizing glyphosate. So when our time was up in Bermuda, we moved to California. I just assumed that California would be way ahead of the game than Bermuda, just to find out that they were utilizing Roundup to show that the elementary students were to run in a circle for the 100-mile club. And that's where this came from. Is my dad used to play for the New York Yankees. So my two boys have been playing baseball or some form of it since they could basically walk. And when I found out the city of Irvine was utilizing Roundup and 2,4-D, are you familiar with 2,4-D?
Right. Is that related to dicamba?
It's a key ingredient in Agent Orange. So when I found this out, I was like, do I call my dad and tell him the boys aren't playing baseball? So I had a conversation with him and my husband, and I was crying because like Michael at the time was in 3rd grade. Trevor was in preschool. So the entire time we were in Bermuda, we were feeding them organic, trying to keep them healthy, feed them nutrient-dense food, like everything, only to find out every single time I let Michael go to practice, go to baseball, and Trevor is like playing with his little Matchbox cars in the 2,4-D treated, brick dust. Like I felt like I failed as a mom, and I just want every parent to know what is common practice. And dog parks too. A certain former and sad singer, because they're really upset with us right now. There's a retirement community linked to someone that sang about cheeseburgers, an amazing place, that used a contractor that never trained their applicators. And we have had in multiple locations from South Carolina to Florida where they're located, these dogs have seized out, and we've lost some dogs. And it's horrible for the applicators because they're not getting trained to use these chemicals. And when you are a contractor that's dependent on chemical solutions, they're not purchasing these products in anything other than concentrated versions. So these poor applicators don't have the proper protective equipment, PPE. They're mixing, we have videos, they're just pouring. There's one video we have of a very pregnant applicator, no gloves on, nothing, pouring the concentrate into her backpack applicator, and it was just spilling on her. And it's heartbreaking to see, but like people just need to know what's going on. People need to know what's being sprayed, where their dogs go, where their children attend school, what your neighbor's using. And pyrethrin, for example, vector control, it's always in nature, like it's naturally derived. No, it's not. It's actually linked to ALS. So our newest advisor, Ray Dorsey, neurologist, Rochester University, amazing human. These things that are being shared with us as a tool are just ecocides.
Right. You said the word non-selective earlier, and I think that really encapsulates it well, right? This stuff's an antibiotic.
Kills everything.
It kills everything green, right? Where are the monarchs? Where are the bees, right? It kills the insects, but it's safe for us and our kids. So
right. And then the 2,4-D thing, people should be made aware because it's sprayed directly to the turf as a flowable or a granular product. And that's to knock out broadleaf weed pressure. So that means your children, your pets are coming in direct contact with it. So that's a selective, but a non-selective is used more in the garden beds, perimeters. It's used on sidewalks, sport courts, any hardscape. And as you know, pesticides don't respect boundaries. And you had mentioned, did you mention dicamba earlier?
right.
Yeah. So dicamba, unfortunately, was banned and then reintroduced, and now there's restrictions. But dicamba is so volatile that it can travel up to 3 miles after application. So it was harming other agricultural crops, but it's also used now because as glyphosate, from an efficacy standpoint, like if you remove public health, if you remove the impacts on the environment aside, and you literally just look at it, like the pesticide industry says, it's a tool. So if you look at it as a tool, it is failing miserably. So you have Roundup, Roundup is at glyphosate, the active ingredients at 11%. They've had to increase. So now and Roundup has also been reformulated because of the $11 billion+ judgments that have been handed out. So for us, if we went to Target or we went to Lowe's, Home Depot, which none of them should be carrying this, you are getting a different formulation than what is still allowed for agriculture. Agriculture still has glyphosate, but now they're adding this pesticide whack-a-mole scenario into what you would be able to purchase from a big box store or online. But with the glyphosate issue, so it has up to a 22-year half-life in our soil. It's creating super weeds, and it's also creating weed resistance. So they're adding dicamba. They're adding all of these other surfactants and inert ingredients that are extremely more toxic than glyphosate was to begin with. And that's why, again, all we need to do is just have a dialogue with your principal, with your neighbor, with your elected official, and just find out what is being utilized, so then you can start to shift it. Because they're shocked. Like that's the craziest part is, one of the most I think the quickest organic policy adoption was City of Burbank, where they had a mayor that could have been a comedian. This man was hysterical. So anyway, a bunch of really concerned residents show up, moms like nursing their babies in the, city council meeting. That was the first. They were there just to say, like, we want our kids to be able to go to the parks and not be exposed to carcinogens that are being used, again, for cosmetic purposes. So herbicides are purely cosmetic. When you deal with vector control issues with spiders, mosquitoes, ants, that's a different issue, but we have organics that can utilize. But when the mayor found out that this was being done, he banned it immediately. He's like, I want this poison out of my parks. He was shocked that public funds went to purchasing the poison. And we found out that a certain chemical distributor wrote the staff report that was so pro-glyphosate, pro-Roundup, that it worked in our favor. It was beautiful. And then the public works, that Michael, who we were dealing with, was great. He said, look, let's figure this out. And we worked with him and we got him the tools he needed. And he said, we just want to do what we're expected to do as city staff. So they're expected to maintain parks to a certain aesthetic. He's like, I don't want to be poisoning our residents. Like, public funds should be going towards protection and not poison.
Yeah, here. Just really incredible. And then, there's this incentive now that they're using with these rewards programs to make it so that the purchaser gets, you know, maybe technically not a kickback, but in essence a kickback. Thousands of dollars on a debit card they can use for going and choosing to use these sort of poisons from Bayer or from Monsanto. Is that right?
Yes. So there's Syngenta Dow, and it's not just the program that Bayer created. All of the chemical distributors, Harrell's is a huge chemical distributor. They're really focused on supplying chemicals for golf courses. And what's interesting was their insurance company went in, and I have to fact check what year it was. It might have been 2018, but their insurance company said, you no longer can sell glyphosate-based products because we will no longer insure you. They did not want the liability. So it's not that Harrell's all of a sudden wanted to protect public health, the environment, and everything else. They were just prohibited from selling it because of the liability risk, which has only greatly increased since 2018 because we didn't have the research that we have now.
It's just wild, isn't it? And now they're also going after these liability shields, right? This is a license to kill in essence, where now we can't stand up for when they harm our loved ones, and we can't hold them accountable. Bayer's Monsanto, they've paid over $12 billion, and they're happy to pay because that's a settlement. So they know they could have paid more, and they took that offer. Instead of going to court, but then they still want to say, oh, but we didn't cause that cancer. Hello, listen, lawyers cost a little bit, but they don't cost $12 billion. So they were made this decision. This is something we have to do. And we see that they fabricate their science. We
Monsanto papers, Carrie Gillen.
Yeah, there's thousands of papers that show that, or thousands of peer-reviewed studies that show glyphosate's toxicity, and they want to, instead of reformulating it, and they could do a safer version. This is something that is part of those Monsanto papers, is that we have in their internal memos discussing making a safer version like they have in other countries. They just wanted to go ahead with it. And now, like you said, things are just getting worse and worse with these other formulations, this whack-a-mole. And they're going state by state for this, and they're working on getting it in the federal farm bill. Can you speak to this and just how wild this is that this is being allowed to happen?
Yes. So I think people don't come at me, bro, but I feel like people underestimate Republicans because surprisingly enough, and people are always surprised by this fact, but more Republican elected officials have brought forward organic policies because they want to protect local control. They want to do what's fiscally sound. And that's what organic management does. And we went in 2018 to lobby against Section 9101, which was Bayer's first attempt at preemption that would have removed and made every organic policy that we had online just dead in the water. We were able to get that removed. And here it is again, and it's much more expansive and restrictive. And the preemption in the Farm Bill would strip away, for example, the newest policy for the town of Hilton Head, the local control. We should be able to have our mayor and parents decide what our children are exposed to in the parks and schools where they play. And that is what they're trying to attack at the federal level. And then, like you said, at the state level, we were able to fight it in Idaho. It's in process in Iowa. It passed in Georgia, our neighbors. It's heartbreaking because it's also directly harming our farmers. There's zero protection for them. So when they get sick, they have no way out. Like, that's it, and a lot of these farmers, again, are constantly forced into utilizing these tools. They're not tools. And they're not doing it to, like, they're looking to increase yields and they're told this lie, right? So they're doing it to just, and they don't have profit margins. They're not loaded, So if someone in the family gets sick, that's like a game, that there's nothing more sad, right? So Georgia already did it, and we fought against it and lost there. So I think people really need to understand what's happening at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. So we still need to keep pushing for organic policies at the local level and protect them from preemption at the federal level. And this thing with elected officials, I think one of the best quotes, and it would save a lot of our time, is Robin Williams always said that he wished elected officials would have to wear who's sponsoring them, like NASCAR does. So we know how to just work with the elected officials that are not taking money from the pesticide industry.
Right, that would be great. That's the movie Idiocracy. I think it's a little along those lines. People are wearing these logos like this, but yeah, it's just ridiculous, and you look at what do these logos represent? Who is Bayer? Bayer is a serial criminal organization going back 100 years. Who is Monsanto? The same thing, going back to DDT and Agent Orange,
and the Nazi home, like chemical warfare.
All right, Tim, you went there. Let's go there. So they made the Zyklon B gas. Okay, they made the gas that was going in the gas chambers. This is who Bayer is. Okay, it's not. It's just crazy. So these are international profiteers. Corporations already, they don't have enough. There's not enough accountability there. When they harm us like they did with the opioid epidemic, it's always just a fraction of profits that are taken, and nobody goes to jail. And so now these international profiteers, they're subverting our democratic system, and they're taking our constitutional rights away from us to stand up for our loved ones. This is a suspension of rule of law, and this is the core reason we have government, is to protect us one from the other. And we're letting the worst of the worst criminals take away the rights of the vulnerable. It's just unbelievable.
They just get a slap on the wrist, worst case scenario, and their profits greatly are so much higher than the little tiny fine that comes from our regulatory system. So I really do feel like our regulatory system we need, and hopefully with the new administration, we can get that fixed, because we want people to thrive. Like, for example, Bayer, right? Bayer. They do not, I don't know how they sleep at night. They are the ones that have R&D facilities that can do the right thing. Granted, they feel like their profit margin might be lessened, but that's not true. I think it's our job to educate the people. We vote with how we're spending. And so with golf courses and Bermuda grass, there's a disease called take-all patch. And Monsanto is who came up with an organic biological activate to control it. So we want to support them. It's just, unfortunately, their product portfolio maybe has 1% of anything that we would ever allow near our food production or our kids. So I think they have an opportunity to shift. Like, if they are not impacted by a loved one getting cancer, ALS, Parkinson's, they're just, again, it's set up so they have to keep their board members and investors happy. So it's a system that's broken, and we have to kind of shift that. But we want to work with them, just like with Procter & Gamble. We want them to actually bring forward an herbicide that is safe for children and pets, but don't say 9 simple ingredients when 6 of them are synthetic. Like, they have the opportunity to fix the system, but they're not doing it.
Right. So you mentioned the shareholders there, right? It's crazy. There's a fiduciary responsibility, a legal responsibility to maximize profits. So when there's an ethical dilemma, in their meetings that they are considering, they can get in trouble. They can get sued if they don't do the thing that arguably wouldn't maximize profits, at the expense of the rest of us. And so this is the system we're in, and I don't know what kind of reforms are needed, but we've got to protect our loved ones. Our very lives are being taken from us, and our freedoms to stand up for ourselves. So
And
important, the work you're doing.
that it reminded me. So when we were working with the city of Encinitas before we moved to California, the residents there took action, worked with their elected officials to ban not only glyphosate-based products, but neonicotinoids that totally have been wiping out our bee population. It's also utilized in flea treatments on our dogs. Everybody, please check to see what you're giving your dogs and cats for free flea and tick prevention. I'm forgetting the Sarah, it's Bayer's product, but if you Google it on the EPA, it's killed thousands, like so many dogs and cats because of these neonics. Anyway, so before we got to California, Encinitas got this on place, right? So they got these bans in place, and it's still listed. If you go to these law firms that have these class action suits against glyphosate, they have Encinitas as banning glyphosate. So what happened was one of our advisors, Zach Bush, he wanted me to share with his team like what the process is. So at the time they had banned glyphosate and neonics, and they had 3 organic parks, right, in this surfing, beautiful community. So I took the team there. We met with the head of the parks department, and we were there just to say, thank you for, taking this health protective action, and thank you for these 3 organic parks. Let's expand it. You've demonstrated that you've been able to do this and take this online. Like, let's expand it so everybody going to any park is protected. So then that's when the staffer said, oh, well, those bans were reversed. This is news to us. So what happened was a former Monsanto weed scientist she was with UC Davis. She went and met with staff and had these bans reversed, and the city council did not even know that they had reversed these bans. That's what we're dealing with. So we need community leaders to just work with and stay on top of municipal staff.
Yeah, it's just so much misinformation, so much propaganda out there. So yeah, setting the truth right. I was talking to another health freedom advocate, and they spend a lot of time just talking to staffers for congressmen, just educating them on these issues, because you held up the book there. The greenwashing that the other side does. Taking the words. Now putting a peel on the fruit is organic, and now
Oh, Bill Gates. Oh, Bill Gates. He's a bad man.
They're taking away the word regenerative. It's just like, how are you guys?
Or
really?
no-till.
Yeah.
They own no-till. So when we went to DC, and we met with both sides of the aisle, because again, this is nonpartisan, folks. Like this needs to be nonpartisan. But they shared that the chemical industry owns no-till.com, no-till.org, no-till. So no-till, they've been able to take, which should be a lifesaver for protecting soil, and they've turned it into a way to just douse every field with glyphosate.
It's so crazy. Yeah, these guys are, man, without conscience, it seems like. And, right. Yeah, no-till is a practice where, right. Yeah.
And
you don't want to.
But they're smart.
Yeah, they are smart. They are smart, but they're devious. They're, they're very deceptive. And what else should we cover, Kim? What do the people need to know? Let me share your website here. Non-toxic neighborhoods is great. People can get started locally, and I guess the first step is ask for that pesticide use plan, right, and figure out what exactly is going on. And people can partner with you and help bring those resources that a lot of people don't know about. There are safe ways to grow our food. There are safe ways to take care of our parks. And in a lot of ways, I tell people it's never been easier, right? We've got more technology, we got more know-how, and they use the other side of that. Somehow we have to use these poisons. We have to, and it's like, well, no, we don't, because you look, dozens of countries, many places, they've banned this. They're doing just fine. They're doing a lot better. So yeah,
And
we
France,
can too.
okay, France, and with the Olympics, like they have beautiful gardens, right? So they banned all synthetic pesticides. You have to fact check me because I don't have I'm using my husband. Anyway, they banned 2017 all synthetic pesticides. It was so popular and so successful that then, because they don't have preemption, they extended it to private gardens. So there are no synthetic pesticides utilized in any public spaces or private homes, which is a huge footprint. There are some synthetics to utilize in agriculture, but again, they have the EU, right? They have the EU standard, which is so much safer, just like with glyphosate. EU standards of a safe level of glyphosate is, again, 17 times lower than what the EPA says is safe for us to be exposed to here in the States. So I think people just need to understand that these chemicals are just a result of industries focusing on profits over people. And if we can just vote with our dollars and begin that dialogue, we can get away from this. Like, my goal is I want healthy grandbabies one day. Not yet, for a long time, but like if you look at sperm counts decrease, if you look at the bee collapse. So just this year, have you looked at the numbers of the bee colony collapses, Johnny?
They're saying it's worse than it has been in a long time, and it's been getting worse and worse. So yeah, 76% of the bees are dying this year, I've heard.
And the numbers are something where, again, we're working with land-grant universities, which is tricky because they receive most of their funding from Bayer, Syngenta, Dow, the big boys, right? So they're panicking. So we're in these IPM meetings, and but what they're actually releasing to the public is just muted. So people need to look at this and the fact that if we want food production to just continue to happen, if we don't want to artificially pollinate our crops, then we have to get in front of this. And again, I think that the important thing is to just understand the chemicals that are utilized where you live and just start that process. And we will help you through every step. Because again, we didn't know what the F we were doing 10 years ago. So we just want to make it so simple. Plug and play. Principals, we learned, have the authority to ban any Roundup application or anything else that's happening. But so many parents don't know that, and parents aren't notified. And one big thing with this rewards program, if you look at pharmaceuticals, right, same people. So Bayer, they sell the chemotherapy drugs that you need once you get this cancer, but it's a closed loop system. Like, again, they're brilliant. So with the doctors, our neighbor is an ER doctor, and she was sharing that they get paid to keep patients on statins even past when they know it's beneficial at all. They get paid for prescriptions, they get paid for vaccinations, but at the end of the day, it's still patient consent. The patient is providing consent because they know what's happening. But when we go to a public park, our kids and dogs go to public park, there is no consent. There's a city we're working with in Texas right now where I am definitely, like, we've seen this movie before. We know that the staff's compromised. Like, they are definitely getting kickbacks. They're fighting providing posting notifications. They're fighting the end of synthetic chemicals. And why? Like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you their salaries are paid for by taxpayers. but yet they're only working to protect the pesticide industry. And that's because of these rewards programs.
Oh, it's such a betrayal. So much money. It's like the whole government runs on our tax dollars, and then what they sell us out for these lobbying dollars is just such a fraction of that. And yeah, it really is just unbelievable we're letting this happen. So, if people want to go and get active in their communities, this is such an important cause, because not only can you get your schools, your parks safe, which is just going to be better for everyone, not just the kids. It's going to raise awareness and help us on these issues at the state level, on the federal level. It's a good way to wake people up and really make it all tangible. So, I just really applaud the work you're doing, Kim. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Johnny. And one last story. We have a city in Kansas that we're working with, and we recommend organic non-selectives to trial. By the way, we're past trials. Like, we know what works. But again, when staff insists on a side-by-side, that's a red flag that they're participating in the rewards program. If they insist on trying multiple, we've seen all of those things before. So when we were working in Kansas, this distributor was pushing Scythe, and Scythe originally was organic, and it was a non-selective that we recommended. Then I got an email while meeting on Zoom with the team from a grower in North Carolina, and she was all upset because she said the Omri listing had been removed from the product label. And if you're organically certified, it's not cheap. And that's another thing we need to fix. We need cost incentives for organic production, for our farmers, for our growers, for landscape in general. So I looked into it, and I had the chemical distributor in this meeting, and she said what happened with Scythe is Scythe was bought out to kick it out of the organic ring. And the woman I spoke to, we had a very frank, I respect what I learned from her, but she said, look, I make money off chemicals, selling chemicals, not selling organics. Would I use Roundup around my dog? No, but I make a lot of money, and I love my job. Again, it's one of these people I don't understand how they sleep at night. But it was nice to hear their very dark kind of perspective on it. And she said, and it removed, thankfully, not our most effective organic control. So I want to make sure if you could just share the formula. Again, tons of trial and error. We've cut, like, the recipe is on par with Roundup, but is organic. And again, it took a lot of trial and error, but we finally have it, and we want everyone to have access to it, except the bad guys.
That is super cool, Kim. Yeah, I just encourage everybody to check out the work at Non-Toxic Neighborhoods, and yeah, let's make our food, our water, our parks, our schools safe again.
Our kids, our dogs, ourselves. Thank you, Johnny.
Mahalo, Kim. Ciao for now.